You ever get hooked on a cold case? You know, the ones that just seem impossible to solve. And they leave you wondering, what if?
Yeah.
What if they could find that one clue that breaks it all open?
Oh, absolutely. Those unsolved mysteries, they really get under your skin, don't they?
And you do. And today we're diving deep into one that haunted investigators and a family for almost 5 decades.
Nearly 50 years. It's the case of Sharron Prior, a 16-year-old from Montreal who vanished in 1975.
Just a teenager, gone.
She was last seen heading out to meet some friends for pizza. A completely ordinary evening that turned into every parent's worst nightmare.
In this case, this is one that finally got solved, right?
It did, just last year, actually. And it took some incredible detective work and the power of, you guessed it, DNA technology.
DNA, it seems like it's solving everything these days.
Mm-hmm.
But back in '75, that was practically the Stone Age, forensically speaking.
You're telling me. But let's rewind a bit first. We've got to go back to the very beginning.
All right, take us back to Montreal, 1975.
Picture this. March 29th, Sharron Prior leaves her home to grab a pizza with friends just a short distance away. But she never makes it.
And then?
4 days later, her body is discovered in a wooded area just outside the city.
Devastating. Just a young girl. What did the police find? Any leads?
Initially, very little. The cause of death, blunt force trauma, but no sign of the murder weapon.
So they're basically starting from scratch.
Pretty much, over the years, they followed hundreds of leads.
Hundreds? Wow.
They investigated suspects, they interviewed people, they even looked into possible connections to other missing person cases, but nothing panned out.
So for Sharon's family, this is just years of agonizing uncertainty.
Imagine that, not knowing what happened to your daughter, your sister, then not knowing has to be the worst part.
Absolutely. But fast forward to 2022. Something changes, right?
Big time. Remember all that talk about DNA? This is where it all comes together. They get a hit. Finally, after all these years, there's a potential breakthrough.
So they finally have a name, a suspect. Who is it?
Franklin Maywood Romine.
Romine. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming they finally tracked him down. And
There's a twist. He wasn't exactly hiding out. Romine had actually died back in 1982.
hold on, he was already dead. But they just got the DNA hit. So how do you even solve a case when the suspect's been gone for over 40 years?
It took some serious digging, let me tell you.
Well, now I have to know, who was this guy?
Turns out Romine had a rap sheet. Assault, sexual assault, the guy was trouble. And here's the kicker. He bounced back and forth between the U.S., specifically West Virginia, and Canada.
Border-hopping criminal. Sounds like he was trying to stay one step ahead of the law.
Oh, definitely. And get this, he even escaped from prison a couple of times. This guy was a pro at disappearing.
Talk about adding insult to injury. The guy commits these horrible crimes and then just vanishes.
It's almost unbelievable. But here's another piece of the puzzle. Just a few months after Sharon's murder, he's arrested in Canada for another crime, extradited back to the U.S.
Wait, so he was literally right there under their noses. Talk about a near miss.
It makes you wonder, what if he'd been caught then?
Things could have been so different.
Absolutely. But hold on, it gets even weirder. Remember how I said Romine died in 82? Well, they haven't even been able to find a death certificate. The circumstances around his death are super murky.
Okay, so let me get this straight. We've got a confirmed killer who's a master at disappearing, crossing borders, and then he dies under mysterious circumstances. It's like something out of a crime novel.
You're telling me it's a wild story.
So, back to the DNA. How do they connect him to Sharron if he's already dead?
This is where it gets interesting. Investigators had to exhume his body from a cemetery in West Virginia to get a viable DNA sample.
Exhume a body. That's dedication.
It shows how far law enforcement is willing to go to get answers and how much technology has changed things. Back in the 70s, the idea of using DNA like this was pure science fiction.
It's incredible to think about, that a case this old can be solved because of advancements in science.
It's a game changer, and for families of other cold case victims, it gives them hope. Maybe their loved one's case can be cracked too.
Sharon's case really shines a light on that, doesn't it? The perseverance of investigators and the potential for justice even after decades.
Exactly. This case was cold for nearly 50 years, and yet they never gave up. That's something to think about.
It is. And it makes you wonder, what other cold cases are just waiting for that one break, that one piece of evidence that changes everything?
Food for thought, isn't it?
It is.